goodness. Hi there. All right, I just want to tell you that I'll be back in 10 minutes. No? No, all right, we'll start. Let me start. Hi, welcome to Socrates in the City. My name is Eric Metaxas. I'll be your server for the evening. Just make your way to the salad bar and I'll be back to get your drink orders. Thank you very much. Good night. All right, let me ask you, because this is very important to me. I see so many faces here, so many friends, and a number of former friends. Yes, 7, 8 former friends. Get out. It's a pleasure to welcome you here. I understand that the president is in town. Some of you had trouble getting here, and we're getting some phone calls from people who are having trouble getting here. I told you to vote for Dennis Kucinich, did I not? I don't know what you're thinking. In any case, let me ask you, how many of you are here have never been to a Socrates event before, ever? Wow, that's a lot of people. All right, now I'm going to ask another question. How many of you, so you're here for the first time, right? Did we get that right? Okay, how many, now be honest, how many of you are here for the last time? Would you raise your hand? Be honest. Well, no, it's great to see so many of you here. Now, I have to tell you, if you've never been to a Socrates event before, you hardly know what this is all about. And I think I have to come clean, cut to the chase, and if this makes you uncomfortable, I apologize. But I don't cut to the chase. We're a UFO cult, okay? That's just who we are. And I figured I better say that up front because tonight, after Dick Cavett comes out here, we're going to put on our silver unitards. And by the way, you've all got silver unitards underneath your chairs, and they're yours to keep. And you can put them on anytime during the evening. But once you've got them all on, as soon as the unitards are all on, the mothership is going to come from behind the sun. She's been hiding behind the sun. She was going to be right over Zabar's, but they closed Zabar's, and I apologize. But she's going to be coming from behind the sun to get us all tonight. Now the doors are locked, and we're just going to go. We're just going to leave. So it's a UFO cult. If you didn't realize it, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it now. We're going to. Actually, it's called Planet Zabar. I think that's where we're all going to go. That's who we are. Again, if that makes you uncomfortable, I apologize. All right, I understand that the aliens who are going to take us there, they have our best interests in mind. Don't feel bad. In fact, they've written a book in their own language. We're trying to translate it. We've only got the title so far, but the title is To Serve Man. So it's all very, very philanthropic, and I think they just want to help us. So the title is To Serve Man. I'm not sure what the book itself says, but the title is To Serve Man. Hang on a second. Yeah? No? What do you mean it's a cookbook? No? Yeah, Justin, you need to double check. You have double checked? Yeah, I can't. Yeah, there's an audience here. I can't tell them. All right, we'll just let it ride. Thank you. So anyway, so To Serve Man, it's a wonderful book, and anyway, that's where we're going to go at the end of the evening. All right, so now you know who we are, Socrates in the City. Now, what we tell people publicly is that we're about asking the big questions. Socrates famously said the unexamined life is not worth living, and then he blew his brains out in an alley. And that's not true. He said the unexamined life is not worth living. And we take it as sort of our motto. We want to sort of ask the big questions. That's why we call ourselves Socrates in the City. And there are many big questions. If you go on our website, socratesinthecity.com, you can see previous speakers and the questions that we've asked. Now tonight, we're going to do something different. Normally we have a speaker, but tonight we're going to be hosting, obviously, the wonderful Dick Cavett. And I didn't want him just to come. Oh, then you've heard of him. Excellent. Wonderful. So I thought it would be appropriate, since we've got Dick Cavett, that we would kind of have something like a Dick Cavett show. The only thing is he's not going to be the host. I'm going to be asking him questions. So I guess I'm going to be playing the role of Dick Cavett in a way. although he's also going to be playing the role of Dick Cavett. So it's confusing, but you'll figure it out. But let me tell you something. I'm not going to do the standard introduction of Dick because I think you wouldn't be here if you didn't know who he was. At Socrates in the City, we tend to have more obscure figures. And in the future, I apologize, we will have more obscure figures in the future. But tonight, unfortunately, we got a celebrity. We're going to go with it. But Cavett is somebody that I just adore. I just adore. So I don't want to gush when he's here. Okay, when he comes out, I'm going to pretend that I'm really not that interested in him. You know, so I'm going to play that role. I'm going to be humble and try to be professional. But I just want to say privately to you and to the millions of people watching at home that I adore this guy. Absolutely adore him. I'm a huge fan of his. I love him. He's very kind. To me, but I've seen him be vicious to his assistants. Unbelievable. Oh, he's nasty when he has to be. Don't cross him. But I really am nuts about him. And so the beauty of this evening, and this is what we always do at Socrates in the City, we have time for Q&A. So initially, I'll be having a conversation with him, but when that's over, we're going to, take our ties off, let our hair down, and we're going to open the floor to questions. Now, the way we have to do this logistically tonight is you have to sing your questions from the balcony. And I don't know why, it's just the nature of the room. You need to sing them from the balcony. That's not true. But what we do need is for you to fill out cards. We're not going to be able to do it with the Q&A. We've got some serious budget issues. Just to let you know, our budget is so tight that Dick and I are going to be sharing a hairpiece. That's true. Thank you. You've been a great audience. Good night. We do have some budget issues, so we don't have the Dick Cavett theme music. So maybe I can sing it and he'll come out. And I better hook up my microphone. Hang on. Mr. Dick Cavett. Oh, there he is. There he is. I told you. You got it. Welcome. Welcome. I'd like you to have this. I'd like you to have your own microphone.
One day at Actors Equity, a very famous screen actress, character lady, had a mic put in front of her at the long table. It was Eileen McMahon. Anyone old enough to remember The Good Earth? And she said, "I am a trained theatrical woman. I do not need this infernal device." Somebody had to put it back. Anyway, I'll put this on.
Won't you?
Who'd have thought the old man to have so much blood in him? You believe this? Can you sue this place?
Incredible.
Pulling the door open in my jackanapes way there.
Really?
Yeah.
You'll do anything for a gag, including bleed. That's amazing.
Well, I'd do anything for you, Eric.
Thank you.
Including bleed.
Well, bleed some more.
By the way, I should tell you, there's a reverb backstage, and I could hear the laughter and not one word that you said, and I wonder if you'd run through the introduction again.
Oh, of course. Oh, there's a Band-Aid.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
Now let's see.
I think
You're
at this
supposed to put
stage,
pressure
we're more
on
at the tourniquet level right now. So if you can, somebody come up with a tourniquet. He's really bleeding.
Is my complexion turning pale?
I'm going to turn, but I'm going to faint. This is incredible. We've never had a speaker bleed before. I want you to know, if it's your first time at Socrates in the City, it's very rare. Now your microphone is going to...
I don't know how these modern things work.
You're going to...
Is that called a Kleenex? Oh, thank you.
I think they call this shtick.
Gee.
Unbelievable.
Really exciting.
Now you pulled your microphone off.
Yeah, that's right.
That's okay. Look, thank God. This is why we're having this dress rehearsal. Unbelievable.
Oh, boy.
You don't want this to happen when it's live, my friends.
Eric, when you've been in
Yes.
this business as long
Yes, as I have. That's right.
you'll know how to bleed.
You always
and
want
handle
this to happen in the
microphone.
dress. That's my motto. So thank God. Unbelievable.
This is
Do you
it's
know how to
get-
use that Band-Aid, or do you have staff that does that for you, Mr. Cavett?
I have people who do all sorts of things for me.
Unbelievable. Well, this is a family show.
We don't want to get into that.
So,
Is it time for the
can
Band-Aid?
I put that on you? It doesn't look like. I don't think you're able to put these on yourself, are you?
No.
Not if the wound is on your hand. Get a good shot of this because it's not going to happen again. Here.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Watch
look at that.
YouTube tomorrow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Du-
In my country, this means
Wow.
in my country, this means we are married.
Doth a wasp not bleed?
Funny stuff.
Oh, thank you. 8 people have read Shakespeare. The rest of you, get the hell out. I say later.
I did a shocking thing. I quoted the Scottish tragedy a moment ago. An actor friend told me recently that an actor got furious at him for coming into the dressing room and quoting what we must only call the Scottish tragedy in the presence of superstitious actors. And it's based on the fact that all kinds of theatrical horrors and murders and things have happened after someone quoted Macbeth in the dressing room. Want to hear some of them?
My upper lip is impersonating Richard Nixon. That's never happened before. That's incredible.
Yeah. He had how you doing?
All right. Appalling. But all right, I think we probably better get started. Any more wounds that we can take care of before we begin?
No, but there's kind of a mini Andy Warhol here.
It's
What? Do you think? Why don't we auction this off for Socrates?
yes, incredible.
Turn it over to you.
Look at this. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
I got. It's funny. I have a handkerchief with pus from Sir John Polkinghorne, who spoke. Brilliant physicist, and he had a horrible wound. No blood, but pus. And between the two of them, a separating wound.
Yeah.
That's right. And it never occurred to me now that
He and his wife achieved a separation.
they're a... Wow. All right, anyway, that's that. So good night. I was saying before you came out and so rudely interrupted me that we've had budget issues, you know, and so we wanted to have a band to play your theme song, and we don't.
But you vocalized it quite
So
well.
I tried. Is that from Candide?
Yes, you owe Leonard Bernstein a residual.
Oh, really? Well, he's dead. Tough luck. So, anyway, but in all seriousness,
Oh, no.
yeah, we wanted to talk. Okay, first of all, I want to say this. We met in 1984 at dear old Yale. Do you remember that? Yes, it was 84.
I remember, but the year shocks me.
Does it shock you?
We must be getting on.
When did you think it was?
I didn't know.
It was, it was the year that I graduated,
Yeah.
and you were the class day speaker, and Harvard had the King of Spain. And we got Dick Cavett, and at the time, some bitchy friend of mine said, you know, Harvard got the King of Spain, and we got Dick Cavett.
Wow.
And you know something? I'm so glad we got Dick Cavett and not the King of Spain. I mean, who cares? What's the name of the King of Spain?
How much
Anybody
fun would
remember?
Yeah, and would he be having a good time?
And did he ever meet Groucho? I doubt it. So,
With his hand
but
bleeding all over
that's
the
when
rock?
that's when we met, and
King of Spain.
anyway. But that's when we met on old campus.
Yeah.
I was the class day speaker, and
Yes.
then you were the speaker. Do you have any memory of this?
I do, yes, and I remember being enchanted by the ankle of a woman sharing the stage with me.
That wasn't a woman. That was the provost, James.
I know there
Yeah, I
have
remember
been-
him. I remember his ankles. I don't remember his name, but holy cow, incredible.
Yes, there was
Yes,
some talk, yes.
I remember.
But it was the ankle.
I too was
And
enchanted.
for, what do you call this? Of Maria Tallchief.
I don't.
Well, a few people appreciate it. The great ballerina, the great.
Oh, the great ballerina Maria Tallchief.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. No, not the
Naturally.
hamburger shop Maria Tallchief.
Anyway,
Anyway.
so we've gotten to know each other a little bit over the years since then. The reason I thought to do a Socrates event with you was because I saw you on Piers Morgan talking. Elizabeth Taylor had died that day,
And you're the one who saw me on Piers.
and I'm the one that saw you on Piers Morgan. And you had all of 7 minutes, which you shared graciously with Morgan Fairchild and someone else who wasn't Morgan
Yeah.
Fairchild. Do you remember that?
There's always someone else with Morgan Fairchild.
Right. See, I don't even know what that means, and it's funny. That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
It's the
By the way,
Groucho
you
influence.
people are late. Don't be embarrassed.
We were worried about you. Do you want to hear the beginning
It
again?
was that
Your seatmate will explain why I'm wearing this.
But I guess I wanted to start this conversation because this is going to be a conversation. And forgive me for having my back to you.
How about
I
apologize?
can do.
Are you going to apologize
Well,
for
you
your
can see
front
him.
as
You
well?
didn't come here to see me. But am I going to what?
Apologize for your front to these people?
Nah.
I
He's
got
had
it
that
in.
in his back pocket for years, just waiting. All right. But when you spoke, I mean, I heard you speak many, many times, but I was taken aback, I must say, at what you said about Liz Taylor. And I had the transcript. It was
Yeah.
short and lapidary, as you can sometimes be.
You'll do me the favor of reminding me playing my part, will you? Or do you want me to?
Of the meaning of the word lapidary?
No, I had lapidary in 3rd grade.
I thought that I was at a taping of Firing Line with Bill Buckley.
Yeah.
And they don't tell you who the guests are in advance.
That's right.
The guest was Henry Kissinger,
Yeah.
and they were talking about the Nixon tapes. And Buckley said to Kissinger, he wanted him to talk about it. And Kissinger said, you shouldn't listen to the tapes. Nixon was thinking out loud. If you want to know what he really is thinking, you have to read the memos, always read the memos. And Buckley says, then the memos were more lapidary. And you could see the look, because you're 10 feet away, you could see the look on Kissinger's billion-dollar mind spinning to
Really?
figure out what does lapidary mean, because he had no idea. And I asked him about it, and he confirmed to me that he didn't know. But anyway, where were you?
Well, God, how I wish the King of Spain were here.
I know. Oh,
But
that's
go ahead.
good. So, but what you said on Piers Morgan was genuinely lapidary, and so I want to read it because
Okay.
you had all of 30 seconds, but you used the 30 seconds well.
Okay.
Okay, you wrote, this is you speaking on Piers Morgan about Elizabeth Taylor's death. You say, this is not a plug, but I looked at a DVD set of my old shows, and there were Hepburn and Bette Davis and Robert Mitchum and Fred Astaire and Groucho Marx and Orson Welles and Marlon Brando. And I thought when Liz Taylor died, this may be the last of the redwoods, the last. The smaller trees are left. And then you said, we have great actors now, of course, because you didn't want to insult anyone.
No.
And then you said, may I say something that may alter the tone slightly? You would agree, I'm sure, that millions of people think I would have loved to have had their lives, meaning Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. Wow, I would trade my dreary life for either one of theirs. But you said, I would caution people from frustrating themselves that way to think of the fact that as great and gifted as they were and all the stuff they had, they were also two drunks, two heavy smokers, reckless with their health, reckless with their careers, Burton dead in his 50s, and if you really envy them, you've got to be nuts. Now, it plays for a laugh here, but I have to say, when I heard Dick Cavett say that, I was genuinely taken aback because I thought, wow, this is someone who has spent some time around celebrities, just a few, and who has himself been a celebrity. And for you to say that about Liz Taylor, it was very moving, and I thought it was very bold of you on this show, which is meant to be merely encomia, I guess.
Yeah, got a lot of hate mail.
Well, there you go. You got a lot of hate mail. But I thought how interesting that you have that perspective. One does not hear that perspective. You said it very graciously. But that's when I thought to myself, I would love to hear more about your thoughts on that subject. That's what gave me the idea to drag you in here tonight.
Well, it's relevant because I wanted to be famous, which is not a very good thing to want for itself. It all began, as far as I can tell, when when Bob Hope came to Lincoln, Nebraska.
What
And
year?
he did a stage show, and I was in junior high. And my friend and I went, and we knew it would be a film of some sort. The ad said Bob Hope, but we'd been gypped before when things like that. And a whole hour of variety and magicians and singing went by. And then the curtain went down. We thought, not again. And we realized unsophisticatedly, this is intermission. The curtain went back up, and a voice said, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the star of our show, Bob Hope. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. I gave myself goosebumps again just now, remembering it. And my friend Lyle said, Jesus, there he is. And Bob Hope, who has a certain walk, and it's a great walk, and it's one you can do backstage to give yourself confidence. I may approximate it.
Very good. Wow. Wow.
Hey, how about those short skirts? Aren't they some? Well, and Eric can do other people.
I didn't know.
And I went around, we just stood there worshiping him and watching him for an hour. And back, I ran to the stage door. And Bob Hope came down the steps. And I said, fine show, Bob. And he said, thanks, son. And decades later, I introduced him during the commercial, looking in the wings to be sure Bob Hope was on my show. And he came out and I told him that story. He said, was that you? But when I watched him leave in a Cadillac driven by the wealthy Lincolnite with Marilyn Maxwell, I thought, he leaves here tomorrow. I had just seen Monsieur Beaucaire on one of the road pictures. He'll go back and make a movie, I guess. I have to go back to school tomorrow. I want people to say, there goes Dick Cavett. And the thought kind of chilled me. I thought, there's no way it's going to happen, I knew. I was a magician, a kid magician, and I had a little fame, and I loved every bit of it when somebody recognized me on the street. But that was a formative moment. And fame is a Midas touch in some ways. I'm sure I'm not the first to say that. But what's interesting about it, what's the Emily Dickinson? Oh, I wish I'd looked it up. Fame.
Hope is a thing with feathers.
Say again? Hope is a thing with feathers.
You know, we're talking about fame.
Fame and hope are the,
Bob, and
No.
she didn't mean Bob Hope.
Bob Hope had no feathers.
He wasn't.
Where do you get these people?
Bob Hope wasn't born then.
No.
All right, but that's close. Anybody else? That's
Fame is a fickle dish on a shifting plate.
She said that?
I didn't just make that up. You don't
Emily
think I
Dickinson hit up?
said that? And then she went into a chorus
none of
of
these
"When You're
people-
Smiling."
You see, nobody here would know if you made it up.
Well,
Most of these people haven't heard of Shakespeare, Dick. I apologize, but this is the crowd we could get.
you told me this was a high-class crowd.
Was.
Why do you put up with him?
They don't. They're not
Can't
going to be
imagine.
back here. But when you say that, you had that feeling you wanted to be famous. I
Yeah.
think most people have that feeling, but most people don't become famous.
No, and most, very small number, statistically. And of course, the thing about the Burtons is true. There's very little envy about their lives. He was drunk for most of his. A brilliant actor. I got him when he was sober for a period and did 4 brilliant shows with him, 4 half hours on PBS, which you can go home and see by typing Burton Cavett. And they're with my blogs that I wrote about Burton, 4 of them. But she was a wretchedly unhappy woman so much of the time. Enormously generous, great to friends, brave about AIDS when nobody was. And she had a lot to be praised about. But she had more ailments than 10 lepers, and she was just suffered a hell of a lot. But there's no reason to envy them that I can think of. Some inflection you did a minute ago was somehow Jack Benny-ish. And it reminded me, he and I were sitting like this, and it suddenly hit me to say, I'm sitting with this god, this man who's been famous for all his life practically. I said, do you like being famous? And he hadn't been ever asked that, I could tell. And he said, you know, kid, I like being famous. I go to the steam room, they give me the best towel. I go to a restaurant, I get the best table. They're out of tickets, I get tickets. And he was saying it in this nice way. It would have been repellent to some people. And then he said the thing I'll never forget. He said, and people are generally glad to see me. Now, I'm sticking with fame, your theme. I get in an elevator with Jack Benny after The Tonight Show. And enough people here who will catch the references. Tourists got in, and he was a little tired, and he's the nicest man in the business. Everybody loved him. And he had to endure, while we're still on the 7th floor, are you really tight? On the next floor down, do you really play the violin? Do you not pay Rochester, somebody else said. And, do you still drive the Maxwell? Some here know what these references all are. For decades, he'd been getting this. And they all ran off when we got to the main floor, and I said, Mr. Benny, does that get old? And he said, again, putting his arm on my shoulder, you know, kid, sometimes you just want to tell them to go fuck themselves.
I think, see, I intuited that there would be something to bleep out.
You got a nose
these
for
are
noise.
family programs. We send these to missionaries. But thank you.
The nuns are leaving.
I think it's safe to say that no one has ever told a Jack Benny anecdote in Jack Benny's voice at a Socrates in the City before. So I want to thank you for that.
Well,
now our
start a
goal
trend.
tonight, besides just talking about fame, is that I want to plug your book. Not yet. Okay, now. But half of what we're talking about, I think, appears in columns. And I didn't say this in the introduction because I didn't want the introduction to be any longer than it already was. But you've been writing a column for the New York Times for what, 3 years, 4 years now?
So, yeah, in fact, my contract is up this week, and they asked me if I want to go on. Yeah. And it's funny, in this supposedly sophisticated electronic age of social media, an amazing number of people still say to me, we heard you write a column for the Times, and we looked through the paper, we can never find it. And I said, it's called a blog, and it's not in the paper, really. It's more online. Oh. So some people have missed it, but for those who have missed at least 80 of them, they're in that book.
Right. Well, that's why I bring it up, because a number of things you've said are in that book, and we'll be signing the books after. I'm going to sign it too. Did you know that?
No, but I think it's good.
I'll sign anything. And I have a copy of Merv Griffin's autobiography, which I'd like you to sign. Would you
Now
mind?
get out of here!
Oh, yeah. It's in the back. I'll get it later.
Now cut that out.
But, and I'm just hoping that before the evening's over, we'll get at least one Groucho anecdote. Will that be possible?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, I had a few questions for you, but Jack Parr once told me, that's not true. He told you not to interview someone, but to have a conversation.
Yeah, before I did my first talk show, my beloved, neurotic, weird, strange, troublesome, sometimes hateful, brilliant ad-libbing genius with the electronic personality of all time for television. Nobody's come close. The great Kenneth Tynan said about him, when Jack's on the screen with someone else, you never take your eyes off Jack. And I said, why is that, Mr. Tynan? And he said, for fear you'll miss a live nervous breakdown on your home screen. And he did a couple times. There were a few. But he said, kid, when you do the show, don't do interviews, as Eric said. And I thought, what do you mean sing? Read to the audience? What? He said, no, interviews. That's, Q&A and clipboard and David Frost and what's your favorite movie and favorite color. Make it a conversation. And that's what Jack did, always. And that was before the age of let me ask you this, which apparently some school of broadcasting has proclaimed everybody must say before asking any question of anyone on television. Now, let me ask you this. And I would say, who's stopping you? I did say that to someone once. But yeah.
Well, I don't have a list of questions, as you can see, because I'm taking Jack Parr's advice.
But go to Q.
But I have some thoughts. What's your favorite movie? No.
Who's been your most interesting guest?
I was just going to ask you that.
I'm sorry.
The idea, of course I want to ask you personally, what are some of the horrors of being famous? Horror stories, or just because everyone wants, you just said this, everyone wants to be famous, and we all know that it's true.
Or would like to know what it feels like for a while, I suppose, maybe. There's I used to have a little collection of quotes about several things, including fame, and I couldn't find them, but there's one from H.L. Mencken. You might have guessed. It is, being famous is being known by a lot of people you don't know and don't want to. Something to that.
But isn't that part of it? In other words, the idea that, even I'm getting this now because I'm speaking around and stuff, and people feel that they know you, but of course you don't know them. And that's to me exactly what it is to be a celebrity, that you have people that are sure that they know you because they've seen you, and I guess to some extent they do.
Yes.
But you don't know them.
And many of these people know you and resent the fact that you might be a little uncomfortable in their presence or feel that you would rather catch your plane than sign their autograph, or you might rather meet your friends.
And those are the nice ones.
Yeah. And one matinee at Stratford, Connecticut this summer, I was there, and Miss Katharine Hepburn, the famous actress. Now see, they knew that name. And she jumped on her bicycle after the matinee, and she had her curlers in, and she was rushing back to her little house by the water in Stratford to get a nap. And some old bag says at the stage door, "Come on back here and sign this. We're the ones that made you." And she said, "Like hell you are."
Oh.
And kept going. And I'm sure they said, "She's a terrible person." But and I had to say to somebody once, "Look, the fact that you have seen me on television does not entitle you to part of my private life. I have no contract with you that says that." Someone who came and sat down with you at dinner or something. The dumb butts.
That was me.
That's the real me.
Yeah.
Yes!
Yes. All these years,
I knew I had seen you
I've
somewhere.
haunted you.
You know what I just realized about my throbbing hand? My doctor is sitting in the audience.
Oh, really?
Jay, how did you know I was
And
going to
the fact that he didn't leap up, that's very telling, Dr. Meltzer.
Yeah.
Very telling.
No.
These doctors, they get to a certain level, and they have people that handle all that,
Oh, yes, of course.
doctor assistants and that kind of stuff.
I
They
never know.
just kind of show up and breathe into the room, and then they walk away, and they get to charge you.
I never know when to believe you, Eric.
Not now.
Okay.
Since this is called Socrates in the City, I want to get a little philosophical for a second.
Sure.
And talk about Thales. Have you heard of Thales? He was a pre-Socratic. Don't feel bad if you didn't know that, because he also didn't know it. Thank you. I don't want to talk about Thales, but I do
Are you
want to.
talking about the Thales?
Yes, the Thales.
Is his name an anagram for healths?
Oh my gosh. I forgot that you do anagrams. unfortunately, we don't have
Almost.
time for anagrams
False
tonight.
anagram, but close. Go ahead.
No, but a friend of mine who's, I think his sister-in-law is a very famous person, and my friend is very bright, and we were talking about the concept of celebrity, and he said that all the celebrities that he's gotten to know, a lot of celebrities, through his famous friend who will remain nameless, it's not Katharine Hepburn, but he said that two things seem to happen that make it difficult to handle fame, at least as he observed it. He said that either one takes in all the praise and it goes to one's head,
Yeah.
or one is naturally and wisely uncomfortable and unwilling to take it all in, but is so uncomfortable because one feels one is a fraud somehow, that all these people, like that if they really knew me, they would know that I'm not so wonderful. So there's some strange sense of shame and keeping people away because you're afraid that they'll find you out. And I thought that's interesting because that could sum up two sort of types
That's
of
a fascinating
celebrities.
thought. I'm sure that happens to people who aren't aware that that has happened to them, but there's always the danger that they'll, I'm going to have to drop a name that is one of the great frustrations of my life. I almost got Cary Grant to do a show once, and I probably blew it by not, he was close, but he said, "They'll find out how dumb I am."
What a dumb thing to say.
Yeah.
We just found out anyway.
Not as dumb as what I said, which was, "Oh, I'm sure you could only be so dumb, Mr. Grant." And we both laughed, especially him, which I'm glad to report. But he was afraid that he made a brilliant statement about his life once when the 10,000th person said to him, said to him, "I would give anything to be Cary Grant." He said, "So would I."
Well, he did create Cary Grant. I mean, he's one of the celebrities who really did create a persona, and you can see how he would be wary of disappointing people.
Disappoint people, and also finding out that he had a very tough life, and he had drug problems, and this and that, and divorces and so on. But that Cary Grant in the movies couldn't have had any of those problems. Well, he did in a couple of pictures. But that's an interesting thought, that
what do you do with it?
to
What
keep
do you
people
do
at
with
a
it?
distance so they don't find out who you are underneath the thing they admire.
What do you do if people gush overly in your general direction? How does it make you feel?
It's embarrassing, and I'll always go for a joke, sometimes unfortunately, but there's an old Welsh novelist, forgotten when he was writing, let alone now, John Cooper Powys, and he had a beleaguered character in his book who had achieved something, but the price was that he was hounded. And it has the touching line, "And folks will always speak to me until the day I'm dead." Ooh, I like that. And when you're smiling. So.
We were going to work in a Richard Avedon anecdote. Do we remember that? Do you
Yes,
think?
fill me in. We had an odd event.
Well, I've got to meet celebrities with you, which is very strange. The first one probably was Woody Allen, right? You took
Yes.
me. This sounds like I'm making, when I tell these stories, it sounds like I'm making them up. We went to see Mort Saul do comedy in the Village. Now, it sounds like this was 1959.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it was not. This was about 6 years ago or something like that.
That's
right?
about right. Yeah.
And we went to, and I looked over, and there was Woody, who to me is a comedy writing god. I mean, it's like if I had met Artemis Ward or Petroleum Nasby, I would not be as impressed as. You've heard of them? I just made them up.
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye. But to see Woody, because a lot of the pieces that he wrote for The New Yorker over the years, more so than his movies, but his written humor, which I aspire to, and I've written written humor, I remember lines because many of them are genuinely brilliant. Here's one. He said, "The lion and the lamb will lie down together, but the lamb won't get much sleep. Isn't that? How do you ever forget that, right? But so there's so much of exactly. So
Was that in a thing where he said, the meek shall inherit the earth? Right in the mouth.
no.
Or right in the teeth probably would be a better wording.
Well, anyway, he's written many lapidary phrases.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the word lapidary. But to actually meet this man whose words I had memorized, it was such an honor for me, and you feel unequal to it, and I felt unequal to it. I'd never met anyone who's a legend like that, whose words I'd memorized. But of course, when I met him, I felt the need to be funny. Unfortunately, you were there, so you can remember this painful moment. But I went up to you, introduced me, and I remember I looked at him and I took his hand and I said, "You look so familiar."
That's right. And he went,
that?
sorry?
And he didn't even groan or say that's stupid. He looked at me like I was a bug. He just let it ride, let me squirm.
He looked at...
And it was an agony. It was really an agony. If he'd punched me, it would have been better. But he was so, I think I can say this, he was so ungracious in that moment. Maybe he was sick or something like that, or rude. But the fact is that to meet someone that one has sort of held up that way, and then to have that moment be such an anticlimax, it's just the strangest puzzlement and agony. And I'm sure you've had this experience with a few people.
Yes, I've done that and realized I said the wrong thing, or tried to say what I thought would appeal to them, and I missed by a mile, and you just want to go get under the rug somewhere.
You'll remember that I did.
You got under the rug? Yeah.
I got under the rug. You don't remember that?
It was linoleum.
Yeah.
You had a hard time
It wasn't
getting
easy. I had it chiseled, but I got under there.
Yeah.
No, the Richard Avedon anecdote. You and I, we also were together with Kitty Carlisle Hart, who brings us back to Groucho, of course.
Night at the Opera.
Night at the Opera. And I thought, what an honor to meet this woman who has been in a Marx Brothers movie. I can't get over it. But we were also together when we went to see Mickey Rooney perform.
Yep.
Now, again, it sounds like we're talking about something that happened 49 or 80 years ago.
Relatively few.
It wasn't. It wasn't many years ago. It was maybe 6, 7 years ago. And he was, at the time, 84, so it's probably 6 years ago.
Right.
And there was an intermission, and actually beforehand, I saw Richard Avedon in the lobby.
Yeah.
And I pointed him out to you, right? And he looked like an old woman. Do you remember that?
Yes, he did.
But don't mention that publicly, because. No. But the fact is that at the intermission, you and Dick Avedon and I were waiting in line to use the one bathroom in the tiny Irish Repertory Theater,
right.
And so we got in a conversation with Dick Avedon, and he said to you, he said, "Mickey, he's not looking too good up there, Dick. He's not looking too," because he was sort of infirm. He's 84 years old. Richard Avedon was 80 at the time and extremely full of energy and stuff. And Mickey Rooney looked old. And I remember Dick Avedon saying to you, "Mickey's not looking too good up there, Dick." He says, is that what we have to look forward to? Oof. And he winced, like, I don't want to get like that. And the door to the bathroom opened, and he walked in and closed it, and we never saw him again. And 30 days later, I read in the New York Times, Richard Avedon dropped dead of a stroke 30 days later.
Was that...
And I thought, 30 days before, he was complaining to you that he might have to get old and shuffle around like Mickey Rooney, and he doesn't.
Well, that's too long a story to tell.
Isn't that fascinating?
Has been told elsewhere, but
Be honest.
But the man who died on my show while I
That's-
was taping...
Did y'all hear that?
long and ghastly
A man
story.
died when he was... Yeah, this is the famous...
Yeah,
Please.
and it's in the book quite vividly. It starts saying, to this day, people come up to me and say, "I'll never forget the look on your face when that guy dropped dead." And now I have the choice of saying to them, "You were in the audience," because the show never aired. Did my description the next night do that to them? These people could pass a polygraph test if they saw this happen. But it's funny. I wouldn't have thought of this until you told that. The next day, some of us on the staff watched the entire live death on tape. And none of us remembered that J.I. Rodale, Prevention Magazine, Rodale Press, who would the gods have die on in the air but a health expert, had said, I plan to live to be 100. Never felt better in my life. He was very funny. I had made a mental note to have him back. And the only other thing was, he said, he was a bit of a joker, and he said, I'm in such great health that the other day I fell down a long flight of stairs and I laughed all the way. None of us remembered that he had said any of those things. It's funny how we post-edited them out because of the horror of what we went through that night.
Well, on
But
that
for
chipper note,
Avedon to predict his own death backwards or something.
and the funny thing is, I was about to pull out my little digital camera and ask Richard Avedon to take a picture of us so that I could have a Dick Avedon photo
Oh, yeah.
of us. I did think of that. And I was just, this is no joke, I was just reaching in, and the door to the bathroom opened, and he walked in, and it was over.
We never got that picture.
And we never got the picture, and when I say it was over
Yeah.
because 30 days later he died. But I thought, what a extraordinary thing for him to
Yeah.
muse on his own
Amazing.
mortality in that way.
He was a bit of a shit,
You know, they say that.
but but not entirely.
I think,
Oh, you reminded me. You got into something earlier. Remember, I was told sharply on a show once, you must never say anything bad about the dead.
especially Hitler.
Huh?
Especially Hitler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I said back.
No.
Yes, it is.
Did I step on your line?
No, what I said was, oh, well, okay, I'll bear that in mind, and next time the subject of Hitler comes up, I'll think of some nice things to say about it. But it's just, I forgot what I was going to say. Carry on.
You know, I forgot what you were going to say. Isn't that
I
funny?
forgot who we are.
I think, well, we want to have some time for Q&A, so I don't know,
Yeah,
has
we
anybody
do.
been collecting cards? I haven't seen any movement. Are there any questions? Oh, there are cards. Oh, look at them being collected now.
Oh, cards.
I
Well,
probably wasn't clear about the fact that
the acoustics
we would need to
are-
have the questions for the Q&A portion.
To fill this awkward pause, would
my-
anyone with a good voice like to shout out
Let's
a
take off our
question?
ties.
Let's.
That's
This is going to be a.
how you know, that doesn't sound written down.
What was the question? What was the question?
I don't know, but it wasn't legible. We really are going to take off our ties. I don't know why.
We don't know why we agreed to do this backstage, but we thought it might be fun for you
Look at
to
you.
see our ties come off.
Unbelievable. You look so casual, I'm embarrassed.
You ought to be.
Incredible. Well, since you're dropping the F-bomb, I figured maybe we could take the ties.
Somebody want to yell out a question? I dare you. Oh, how is Tick Hall?
Oh, Tick Hall.
It's the name of my
She's
house.
fine.
It's fine. You
She's
may
fine.
have seen a documentary about it. A lot of people.
See, now
talk
you'll have
about
to
that.
explain this because
Yeah.
a lot of people here won't know. This is one of the most amazing things. I had the privilege of being there, so please.
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to find a Stanford White House overlooking the sea in Montauk years ago, and great place, and got it and lived in it for many years, and it burned down. And my late wife said, "We'll put it back up," and I thought, "Oh yeah," and we duplicated it. And there's an interesting documentary called "From the Ashes" that plays around PBS about Tick Hall. Any other impersonal questions?
How's Tick Hall? How are the other Stanford White Houses? No?
Can I have some?
Thank you.
Can I have some?
These are terrible questions. This question is so illegible, it must have been written by Albin Sader. Is Albin here? Have you learned the tricks the great Slidini did, or any other fun Slidini story? Slidini.
Yeah. There are two pieces in there about this great master magician who was a hero of mine as a boy getting magic catalogs, the great Slidini, the greatest close-up magic artist ever. That's just a fact, not an opinion. And you can see him by Googling Conjuring Slidini, and you will have the fun of reading my 2 columns about him and seeing the 2 half-hour shows that preserved his work for the only time that was done. I got a lifetime membership in the Magic Castle for Slidini. You will never see anything like him. I look it up. I would look it up if I were you, yes. Yeah, I studied with him. I know how he did most things that some others nobody does. And it's just, seeing him is like if a man came in and walked up the wall. Cards, coins, cigarettes, no gimmicks, pure magic.
And I've seen those videos
They're
and
wonderful.
read your columns on him, which is one of the reasons I wanted to ask that. Well, this is kind of a depressing question. In fact, it's literally about depression.
Oh, is it literally?
It didn't get a laugh. Depression
Yeah.
usually gets a laugh when you...
Is there anything lapidary about it?
Dick, have I told you about the word lapidary?
Yes, you did.
Oh, all right.
I'll tell you something that will pin
I can
one
take a
of-
hint.
This will pick.
Yeah?
It's my turn. That will
It's all
pin
your turn.
one of your ears back. The great Groucho Marx, and don't prepare to laugh. We were talking once about the written humorists, the great ones, and as he said, Benchley, Faber, Kaufman, Perelman. And he said, you know, you can read a lot of Benchley at once, and you can read a lot of Thurber at once, but you can't read a lot of Perelman at one sitting.
That's correct.
It's too lapidary.
Really? He really said that?
Yes, he did. Yep.
Well, back to the question about depression.
Are you prepared to apologize?
It is a funny question. You've spoken publicly about your bouts with depression. What made you decide to go public with this part of your life?
Well, that's easy in retrospect. I couldn't see any reason not to at the time. The Times, I might have had a bit of a hint that it would help some people. And the only nice thing about depression is that someone allegedly famous, having had it, that's a great comfort to people who aren't and who have it for some reason we could go into more deeply.
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude, yeah. And thank you for making it 4 syllables and not Schadenfreude, the way you hear it all the time. Anyway, so when someone comes up and says, you saved my daughter's life, because she was a great fan of yours, and when she read about you and depression, she decided to get help. She was ashamed to until then, or my father turned himself in because of you. And it's a funny thing, of all the things I said about depression, and I wanted to pull back because I didn't want to become the poster boy for depression, but then I was on Larry King about it and a couple other things, shows. The one that struck the greatest chord with victims was something I thought of while on the Larry King show, and I just said, there's a strange feeling about it. I said, you can't imagine how bad it is if there were a magic wand on the table 6 feet away that would cure you. It would be too much trouble to pick it up. And a lot of people went, yeah, that says it. I'm not sure why that says it. I'm not sure it's my profoundest feeling about depression, but that's, I was on the couch during one long session, and I decided that that's a waste of time. Talk while you're in deep depression, you don't even know what's being said. You can't follow a sentence from beginning to end. You can't remember what you just thought or what was just said. You go home and all you see is the sidewalk, and you can't remember anything about what just happened. But in that session, the doctors, it's so frustrating for somebody who hasn't had it to try to give them an idea how bad it is. And I said, I wish you and all your colleagues could have this for 5 minutes or 1 minute. And the quality of it, you would not believe it. And he said, well, I know. I almost went to pieces when my father died. And I sort of rose up and turned, breaking the rules, to the doctor and said, do you think grief is even close to this? And he said, I shouldn't have said that. I was sort of nice. And that's why I say, when you're smiling, got to keep the tone up.
I have some other questions. Some of these. Here's a statement: the blood on your tissue is the face of the Virgin Mary. That's a true or false question.
Can I see that?
Let me see. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Do you have the answer?
Nah, it looks like Padre Pio, actually. It's. Thank you. Thank you.
I like when Jesus appears in pieces of toast and stuff. Don't you really?
This is another question. Now, I think you'll know the answer to this question.
Okay.
What is the capital of North Dakota?
How did I know you were going to say that?
I don't know,
Hand me
because-
one without looking at it.
Really?
Just for fun. Yeah, just catch as catch cannot.
Oh,
Just
here.
just one card. You gave me a long one. We're from Cleveland, and New York is so dirty. What makes your town so crummy? Tourists.
Are you going to keep going? Let me just say, as the host of Socrates in the City, I apologize to all the stupid tourists in the room.
Oh, well.
These are, well, they're almost legible. Here's a question that I would like to ask. And in fact, I get to ask it. How do you do that? That's extraordinary.
I did that in Charlie's Aunt and got a huge laugh. They're the man now who saw me.
There's a man now who's heard of Charlie's Aunt. At Williamstown?
At Williamstown, yeah.
Was it?
Uh-huh.
How did I know that? Would you consider making a short series of interviews a comeback of sorts? Well, I think let me rephrase that. Would you like to do what you did on TV again, and why wouldn't you?
There was this, earlier this year, there was on CBS Sunday Morning, they did a really great piece, beautifully done, called Would the Cavett Show Survive Today or something, talking about everything's in 7-minute segments now and so on and so on. And media is scattered everywhere. And it was a beautiful segment. Did you not see it? I'll see that you see it.
I didn't see it.
Groucho's in it, and they had some wonderfully selected clips and stuff. And I don't know what the answer was finally, but I have a feeling now that that I'm in shape to do it, and I rather would like it. I don't know that I want to. No.
I wouldn't do it if I were you. So
Tell somebody I'm available.
that was a cheap joke for the groundlings in the balcony. Now this is pretty specific, Dick. Some of these questions, this is even more specific than the North Dakota question. It wasn't that specific. My sister was on your show, and Oliver Reed poured a pitcher of water over her head. Do you remember?
No.
Thank you. I think somebody made that up.
I didn't remember it as being over her head. No, seriously, I have the slightest idea.
You don't remember that it was water?
Why would Oliver Reed, the British actor, pour a pitcher of water over your sister's head? She must have been asking for it.
Don't admit
That's
to
what they
having
say
asked that
about women,
question.
right? She must have asked for it. I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm not saying it's not true either. Are you smoking anything?
Okay, and this is one of those questions. If you could invite any 3 guests, living or dead,
Oh, yeah.
not decomposed, but dead, onto your show. Now, it says, who would you choose? We know the person meant to write, whom would you choose?
Yeah.
So don't admit to having written this, because it
I'm
would be
sure.
very embarrassing. Whom is still a word in the English language, and if English is your first language,
Yeah.
you want to brush up on the objective case. But I believe the question was meant to be, if you can invite any 3 guests, living or dead, onto your show, whom would you choose?
Well,
Whom indeed.
would they also write, what is your list? What is it apostrophe S
Oh, no.
number of names? No, okay. Nobody knows the difference between that and lay and lie, except you and me. I
But
think,
that,
in
and,
this
and I'm
society.
not so sure about you.
Everything.
Now,
It shouldn't be.
seriously, no,
But that's a hard one. I think just off the top of my head, without putting in Groucho, who of all my guests probably meant the most to me ever, probably Oscar Wilde, Mark Twain, and Kathy Lee Gifford. Not necessarily in that order.
now I assume you're using Kathy Lee just as a joke. There's not some odd logic to that.
No.
There's not.
Don't work at it too
How
hard.
sad. But that Oscar Wilde, Mark Twain, Kathy Lee Gifford reminds me of one of those Chinese menu. No, it's those placemats you get in Chinese restaurants where they have the year of, the rat, the year of the.
Oh,
And then they
yeah,
list.
yeah.
Sometimes they'll list celebrities, and I remember reading. This is no
will?
joke. I remember once reading. Gee, the year of the monkey. Who's in the year of the monkey? And it said, Buddha, Socrates, David Niven. And I thought, that kind of sums it up. They're all celebrities.
Yeah.
Buddha,
Yeah.
Socrates, David Niven.
I think I have all their autographs.
But that's kind of like, Oscar Wilde, Mark Twain, Kathy Lee Gifford, in a way. Because there's nothing wrong with David Niven, but in that company, he's not looking so hot.
Is there a word for that joke form, or the descending, suddenly descending
I think
third part
Woody Allen
three?
invented it,
I
didn't he?
wonder.
It's
I
like
wonder.
X, Y, and matzo ball soup. It's always, right?
Eric, this will interest you.
Will it? Will it interest them?
Yeah, doesn't matter. I saw Woody the other day. We went and visited our ex-manager, our great beloved Jack Rollins, who's very old, and we visited him. And I wanted to say to him, and we didn't have time because he had to fly to Rome 2 days ago to make a movie. Do you, when you're writing, are you aware who's influencing you at that moment? If when when we first met, young men, years and years ago, he said, the young people don't know the humorists or anything that took place before their own birth. You can't find young people who know who Benchley, Thurber, Kaufman, Perelman were, and the others, Parker. And when you're writing a certain sort of line for a New Yorker piece or whatever, do you ever think, I wouldn't have written that if I hadn't read Thurber? I've even thought, I wonder if Thurber said this, and I really know I'm influenced by something Thurber wrote. And the only one whose genius was so brilliant that he can't really influence anybody was the great Fred Allen, whom a discouraging percentage of people don't even know who I'm talking. Even Steve Allen, no.
Marty Allen?
Marty Allen, yeah. For example, if you were assigned to write a joke, and it was so windy joke, or I were, in a million years I would not have come up with Fred Allen's. It was so windy, I saw a hen lay the same egg twice. It's just genius, isn't it?
Wow. Wow.
I mean, I didn't get it the
the
first
heck?
instant I read it, and he said about Milton Berle's great success in a letter to Groucho, Milton is the moron's messiah. Can you get better than that?
That's in the book. I know it because I just read it.
I think it is. Is
Milton
it?
is no, it's in that book. It's all in the book, really. So, I'm going to get philosophical again. You talk about this influence, which makes me think of Harold Bloom, whom I had at Yale.
Oh, you
He was
did?
not there during your time.
No.
But he talks about the anxiety of influence and how we're all being influenced and so on and so forth. And I know that I've been influenced by Woody Allen, and I'm thrilled to
Yes.
to say so. And through him by Perelman and Benchley.
Here's a Woody form I probably wouldn't think of in that same way as I'm saying about Fred Allen. He has a great piece about the mafia in one of his collected pieces. And in it, he is called upon to name several. Louis the Gyp Gorandini, Tomaldo the Hook Bacciarelli, Leo the Fish Capotella, and Mario the Logical Positivist Gentilini.
That's it. Yes, I remember that.
Remember that?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just getting it again.
Okay, I want to ask you again to get back to sort of the nature of celebrity and fame and what is it about that, right? And I think it has something to do with transcendence, right? We want to touch the ineffable, right? And that's what celebrities represent to us somehow. We think, if only I could meet so and so. It's like meeting Santa Claus or God. There's something about certain people that you think somehow they have the ability to do something. You're not sure what, but it's not something pedestrian. It's something.
Yeah, it's right. You couldn't define it, but you know that there must be something very desirable about it. Some of it might rub off on you.
Yeah.
But in itself, the loss of privacy when it starts. I remember when I first knew Woody, he was appearing on Merv Griffin's show and The Tonight Show. And I said, but people aren't recognizing you. And he said, you have to do a lot of television before they start recognizing you. And then, of course, it was my fate to do a lot of them. But you do realize suddenly you can't pick your nose anymore in public and get caught with your fly open with the same consequences, famous, that you get when you're not. And the fact that people will come over and bore your ass off talking to you in many cases.
Would you care to point anybody out? Because
I wasn't pointing at
we're
any.
all friends. Point them out, they won't do it again.
But you inadvertently hit on something there, though. Shirley Temple, there's a great quote about fame from Shirley Temple. Do you know the one I mean? I believed in Santa Claus until he asked for my autograph.
Oh.
Sweet and poignant.
That's incredibly poignant.
Yeah.
I do think, though, that just for example, one of the joys of knowing you is knowing that you knew people that are absolute, untouchable gods like Groucho, and not just because they've died, but the idea that you've known some of these people, it's thrilling. And I think there is something about celebrity. You think that those people, they know everyone, or they know, or maybe it's the ability of transcending time. This idea that you've hung out with people that are long gone and they're part of another era.
Yeah,
and I can touch them through you.
What you said about, when I said that thing about the redwoods, that feeling, I looked at believe me, this is not a plug, but this DVD of mine, is it on camera?
It's on Amazon.
I was being, thank you. It is on Amazon.
Now that's a plug.
That is a plug, and he took the fall. I was on radio plugging my book, and a guy said, that the list of people you had on is incredible. And I had this on the table, and I said, listen. Or he said, who's on that? And I said, Fred Astaire, Marlon Brando, Mel Brooks, Frank Capra, Betty Davis, Kirk Douglas, Katharine Hepburn, and Alfred Hitchcock, John Huston, Groucho Marx, Robert Mitchum, and Orson Welles. The whole shows are there. But the thing that struck me in reading that list suddenly on the air was, who are their counterparts today? Now, that isn't to say we don't have Meryl Streep and other great actors and actresses, but...
We don't have her.
But we don't?
No, you didn't hear?
Oh, you bastard.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah.
What?
Oh, earlier today, you didn't hear? I'll fill you in later.
Can you believe that passes for
Of
humor?
course we have Meryl Streep.
What a wretched little man you
But you
can
know
be.
we don't have... But you heard about De Niro.
Now stop it!
Okay.
I'll pour water over your head like Oliver Reed, was it?
Sorry.
Did your sister recover? Or? or drown.
Was it really Well, I've got some of the most specific odd questions. I'm going to just read them staccato fashion. In fact,
Okay.
I'll tap them out for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, Eric.
Yes?
A minute ago, did you say something like you feel these famous
Yes.
icons know everything?
And
or
you were
no?
listening.
Yeah.
Yes, I did say that.
Something came through.
Well, the idea of transcendence. I mean, Shakespeare talks about immortal longings, right? Actually, here's another person that you met that I would kill to have met.
Shakespeare?
No, not Shakespeare. Thank you.
Yeah.
John Cheever, in one of his short stories,
Oh, yes.
he writes. Now there's someone that I would have loved to have met. But Cheever, whose voice I heard for the first time on an audio tape of your show in, I think, 1984. But he, in one of his short stories, talks about somebody obviously having some kind of a lustful feeling, but he refers to it as immortal longings, quoting the Bard. I like to call him the Bard. But that idea of that it's not just this thing, but it's a longing for transcendence, that fundamentally that's what even misplaced longings are, longings for kind of transcendence. And I think that that's what the appeal of fame or celebrity is somehow.
I think
don't
it's
know.
probably true. A sense that you'll be elevated above the common person, that there'll be some magical thing that will make the rest of your life enchanted in some way.
Or even that you'll step outside of time. I mean, I think that you
Yes.
think of people who fall in love with somebody's music, right? You know, I
Yeah.
think that certain lines in a song, it's usually more Bernie Taupin than Elton John, but probably shouldn't be so open. But that somehow it speaks to you in a way that you feel that that person knows me or I know that person and I've just got to. But then if you meet the person, it's just a person with feet of clay, as Woody Allen certainly was when I met him. Thank you very much.
Those clay feet of his. Yeah.
Terrible
It's a
clay
hard
feet.
time walking.
Now, do you remember,
these
where
days.
does that come from? Feet of clay.
I
Anybody know?
haven't the slightest idea. I often wonder about phrases like that. Someone had to be the first to say it. I remember a Life magazine article, letter, saying that your article about William Boyd as Hopalong Cassidy just ruined me. Why do all our idols have to have feet of clay? And I was a little kid. I didn't know what the hell they meant by feet of clay. That they didn't scrape their shoes off when they
I
came in the house.
think, I'm not sure about this, but it would be rude for me to look at my iPhone now. But unless my wife calls. Honey, don't call.
Right.
But I think it comes from, in the book of Daniel, there's an idol made of different, Daniel sees a dream and there are different, the top of it is made of,
Really?
somebody help me. Anyway, it's not clay. It's made of this, and then this part is made of this. But
Lapis lazuli.
But the feet, what?
Lapis lazuli?
No. But the feet are of clay. In other words, the least valuable of all things
Well,
are the feet of clay.
made
So
of
even
feet
this
of
great
clay.
idol, which is made of gold and silver, and stuff, but the feet are of clay. I think that's where it comes from. I could be completely wrong, and we're off the subject.
You do hate to hear of what a schmuck someone you admire is or was or can be to people. I found another thing, that you can make assumptions about famous people, that they know famous things about themselves. And I have two quick examples. Sitting there with Miss Hepburn, I said, what was your feeling when that quote, who gets credit, was it the Algonquin Round Table, someone who made that remark about you, your cheekbones, your famous cheekbones, and called them the greatest calcium deposit this side of Dover. It's a wonderful
was
line.
Fred
And it
Allen.
was somebody like H. Allen Smith or someone at that time. She said, I never heard that before. Well, who do you think said it? And I thought, it's the most famous thing to... Another quick example. Riding in a limo with Fred Astaire. Am I dropping names? We had just taped 5 hours of stuff for the Kennedy Center archives, and the air conditioning was off in it, so we had the windows down. We stopped for a light on Beverly Boulevard or somewhere, Sunset, probably. 2 tourist ladies were standing here and heard, perhaps, me say to him, What was your feeling when whoever it was said about you and Ginger Rogers that she gave you sex appeal and you gave her class? Oh, I said, it was Katharine Hepburn who rather famously said that about you in the 40s. And he said, here's what the ladies heard. I saw them recognize us. What? Mr. Stair, she said that Ginger Rogers gave you sex appeal. You gave her. What the hell? Oh, Dick, I don't believe that. What? Jesus, what? Does that mean I'm a fag or something? I mean, it's the stupidest thing I ever. And just as the ladies were focusing, he said, Katharine Hepburn is full of shit.
Wow.
Ever told you that?
No.
Oh, imagine them trying to convince their friends what they heard and saw. Oh, I loved it.
That's hard to believe. That's amazing.
But neither of them knew the two famous things.
And I love the fact that both of those anecdotes are linked by Katharine Hepburn.
Hepburn is the common element in the two of them, yeah.
You think it means anything?
No,
Neither do I.
nothing means anything.
Neither do I. I think everything means everything.
See Sarge on that subject.
We did. All right, I've got a couple of questions that I have to ask.
Okay.
They're just burning a hole in my palm. I don't have a question, but could you please make one up for me? Thanks.
Does anyone know that geographical question you asked earlier? Does everyone here know what that's about? I'm surprised how many people have not heard that.
Tell that story. The geographical question is, what's the capital of North Dakota?
Yeah, Julius Marx was also known as Groucho Marx, and he was in vaudeville with his brothers, and they were big stars while they were in their 20s and 30s. And he said, we were playing in, I sort of do him when I fall into it. We were in Minneapolis, and it was a matinee, and somebody came back and said, are you interested in spiritualism? And I said, yes. And they said, you want to go, they asked him if he wanted to go to a seance, so the trance medium, Anna Eva Fay, famous trance medium from England, I think. And they said, now Groucho, there must not be any fooling around. These people are believers, and these are solemn occasions. And he said, well, I'm not an idiot off stage all the time. I'm interested in supernatural. So he went, apartment, draped in black, some wealthy person's home, probably a woman who looked like Margaret Dumont in the Marx Brothers movie, got up and said, and he didn't have his mustache because he painted it on in vaudeville. So
what? Just kidding.
Yeah.
I knew that.
And he said, and she said, I am in touch with the other world. Does anyone have a question? Does anyone have a question? And a familiar voice said, what is the capital of North Dakota? He said he had to run for his life.
I'm glad we all know the provenance of that now, because it's too important for that to be lost to history. Now we know.
Oh, yeah,
and we'll pass that on. What's capital?
Didn't want anybody to go home empty-handed on that one.
Some people have written these cheeky questions. We don't have much time here. Will there be dogs in heaven? Now, gosh, if I can ask Dick Cavett one question, surely that would be it. Will there be dogs in heaven?
Knowing that I would have the answer.
Yes.
If there is no heaven for thee, then there is no heaven for me. I saw as a kid on a picture of a little girl patting her dog. He was dead.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And 10 minutes later, she dropped dead. It was a wonderful.
The question, it's very sweet. The question of whether dogs will go to heaven, actually in my Bonhoeffer book, which I'm not plugging.
No. By the way, it is a work of genius. We don't know who wrote it.
but in there, Bonhoeffer struggles with this. A little kid asks him and says, Herr Wolf ist tot, that his dog had just died. But this is an important question.
Wolf
but
ist tot, yeah.
But and he
Yeah.
struggles with it. But anyway, I guess you'll have to buy the book. But anyway, will dogs go to heaven? All right, here's another question.
My
What was it-
question would
Yes?
be, are there people in heaven? But I don't want to be controversial.
That's good. Why? What do you mean?
No, I guess my Welsh Baptist hellfire preacher grandfather Richards once, I was a little kid and we were sitting on the porch and I said, how far is heaven, Grandpa? And he said, farther than we can see, Dickie. And I never forgot it. And I thought, will they ever be able to see far enough, maybe? It was well before the telescope.
The Hubble. Yeah, now we
Before
can
the-
see it, obviously.
Yeah. But they never tell you what they see there.
I have much to say on this subject,
there
but
any mention-
fortunately we're out of time.
Oh no.
Yeah, we're
Is
just about
heaven
out of time.
described in any way in Scripture?
Of course.
I mean, in any kind of physical details, or where did we get all the nonsense about harps and bird wings?
That's all covered in my book, which you blurbed. We won't talk about that.
I
I'll
was
have to get you a
asking for
fresh-
them.
Oh, right.
I have
We'll
them
to get
in
a fresh
mind.
copy.
Right.
Well, you know this new book about this little kid who went to heaven? Yeah. You know about that, right?
You know,
And
I talked to someone who read that, and they said, that's quite incredible.
I think that was me.
Oh, well, then forget it.
Yeah. Well, we have the same publisher, this little kid and I.
Oh, it
but-
was you.
Yes, it
Forgive
was.
me. Yeah, it was you. Yeah.
Were it?
Agree.
But in the story, he talks about his dead relatives or whatever, and saying that they have wings, right? And that was the only thing in the book that gave me pause, because I have to say,
Yeah.
his descriptions are staggering. And if you don't believe in heaven, read the book.
Should
because
I read
it's-
it?
I would.
Yeah.
Well, my wife and I've read it. Everything except the meat of it, where he talks about heaven.
Yeah.
It's kind of poorly written and it's padded, because they needed to get a whole book out of what really was a magazine article. But what he, not that there's anything wrong with that, but what he describes, it's fascinating and very, very compelling. There are many anecdotes, many stories that I have read along these lines, which are absolutely fascinating. But the one thing that troubled me about his story is that he says that the people, when they died or whatever, they had wings, right? And that's one of the misnomers that I write about in my book. In other words,
Yes.
angels have wings, but people are people. We don't become angels when we go to heaven. We may be off topic, Dick. Let me ask
I
you.
must throw this in appropriate to our theme. Who wrote the following three lines?
Haiku?
No memory of having starred atones for later disregard, nor keeps the end from being hard. Wow. Isn't that?
You know what, I think we should...
Did not write that,
You,
but Mr. Robert Frost did.
I would have guessed either Emily Dickinson
Yeah.
or Angie Dickinson.
I think I know. I think I know the whole poem. It's only 5 stanzas, but isn't that a chilling?
Well,
that's the penultimate stanza.
I'm going to save my final question for just a moment. I want to mention these pedestrian things so that we don't have to mention them after.
Right. Okay.
So these are the pedestrian things that I'm now going to mention.
Okay. That poem, by the way, is Provide by Robert Frost, and it's the dark side of Robert Frost that they don't teach in high school, where you think he's a harmless little old gent who writes about cider and.
Oh, he was very dark. Do you
Dark
know the
as
poem
hell.
about the what's the one about the spider?
Oh yes.
I saw a dimpled spider, fat and white, on a heel all. Anyway, it talks about a spider devouring a moth. It's really unpleasant, and I won't quote it anymore.
Well, this
but it
one's-
was dark. I learned about the dark frost in.
Well, this one starts the witch who came, the wrinkled hag, to wash the steps with pail and rag, was once the beauty Abishag, the picture pride of Hollywood. Too many fall from great and good for you to doubt the likelihood. die early and avoid the fate, or if predestined to die late, make up your mind to die in state. Make the whole stock exchange your own. If need be, occupy a throne where nobody can call you crone. Some have relied on what they knew, some on merely being true. What worked for them might work for you. No memory of having starred atones for later disregard, nor keeps the end from being hard. Better to go down dignified with boughten friendships by your side than none at all. Provide, provide.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Did you know that just to lighten the tone, by the way, I teach the moonwalk, and I'm sorry I ever gave it to Michael Jackson. I knew the Jackson 5, my early show. I knew Michael when he was black. I'd created such a nice mood, and then...
It wasn't that nice. To go from Frost to that,
Isn't that a hell of a poem?
I think we really may have to go back to Frost.
Hell of a poem.
It's a hell of a poem,
And not known.
But don't. That was so magnificent. I'm going to say, I just want to get back to this poem. First of all, I know that you've memorized a lot of poetry.
I haven't really. I remember poetry without memorizing it.
I think it's the same thing.
And
You just have an easier time of it, and that annoys a lot of us.
Maybe, but I can't remember ever sitting down. Oh, I've memorized when I was in Shakespeare plays and stuff. I've had to, obviously, but I can remember a poem after a while.
After a while. Do you
Yeah.
know Paul Revere's Ride?
Was Sarah Palin involved in it? He warned Sarah Palin. Was that it? That the British were coming?
No. I warned you not to bring up Sarah Palin.
Oh, there's a piece in there about Sarah Palin in which I say she seems to have no first language.
That's right. Terrible. Where were we? Yes, poetry.
I don't know.
Poetry. Paul Revere's Ride, Longfellow.
Yeah, I like that poem.
No, what you said, because you unwittingly, in quoting those three lines, you really brought up the question that I wanted to ask. I mean, there's something about fame. One of the downsides of fame, which we didn't touch on until you did through Frost, is the idea that it's something that's fleeting. And that, have you ever felt, or have you ever been around people who they've had fame and that they want to cling to it? There can be a desperation because it can be so wonderful and that you'll do anything to cling to it. And surely you've seen people come and go.
Yes,
It's an amazing
you may
thing.
be unconsciously alluding, not referring, to a piece in there about Walter Winchell, a name that some will remember. And I met him late in his life. Walter Winchell, like the character in Sweet Smell of Success, was a tyrannical columnist who ruled the show business world and made a play and broke a play and made people and broke them. And
By the way, I did read that piece, but I wasn't alluding to it.
No, you
But I
weren't.
have to say that is another one of that's a spectacular, spectacular little essay, and another reason to recommend the book. But please.
Well, I won't tell it all. It's just that I met him late in his life, and he was clinging to fame desperately, and yet he had none left really to cling to.
What year was this?
This would have been while I was
60s?
on ABC show. I had him on, and he danced.
Walter Winchell.
He had been a dancer, yeah. He carried a .38 in his cummerbund, took me to the Copacabana, where we saw Tony Martin bibulously sing for about an hour. And then we rode in his car, and he had a police radio, but nobody knew who he was anymore. And we went to a station house, He'd followed police radio, followed police calls for decades. And we got in the station house. And, hey, fellas, and they, who the old fart? And then somebody said, hey, mister, talk again, say something. What do you want me to say? Oh, pointed to this wilting old man. The Untouchables. You had a voice on the Untouchables. That's who you are. And he signed an autograph that was not requested.
I was hoping we could end on a bummer. So thank you. I prayed, and God answered my prayer. So thank you. That's
Do you want a
extraordinary.
Groucho? Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
Do you want a quick Groucho that you may never have heard before? Few have, but I might have told it to you.
Yeah.
There are a million, of course, but Groucho was in a restaurant in Beverly Hills with his producer, and a man came over with his wife. And this was not long after Groucho had told me, you know, I can't insult anybody anymore. You know, they think I'm kidding, and I really hate them, and they just say, oh, Groucho said this, and Groucho, oh, that's Groucho. And the man came over with his wife, and the man said, say something insulting to my wife. And Groucho looked and said, with a wife like that, you should be able to think of your own insult.
Ladies and gentlemen, how about a warm Socrates in the City hand for Dick Cavett?
Oh,
We would,
oh my God.
We're going to set up the table here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're going to set up a table here. Get your books quickly, and we'll have a line, and Dick will come back out and sign the books. Thanks for coming. God bless you.